Have you seen someone who seemed to have it all together when it comes to their faith and relationships, only to watch them face heartbreak or confusion? Let's talk about Jen. She's someone who tried her best to trust God with her love life. She prayed, she waited, she followed God's guidance, and yet, even with all the right intentions, she ended up heartbroken and questioning everything. In this video, we'll dive into the hard lessons of Christian dating, the ones that don't get talked about enough, but are so essential for growing in your faith and understanding God's will in relationships. Hard lesson number one: not everyone who says God is sent by God. Jane thought she found the one. He was handsome, charming, and most importantly, he loved God. He prayed with her, quoted scripture, and seemed to know exactly what to say to impress her. But as the months went by, things started to feel off. She noticed he didn't treat others the way he treated her. There were inconsistencies in his character that didn't line up with what she believed a true follower of Christ should look like. And one day, when Jane was praying, she felt a deep conviction. She had been blinded by the words he said, not paying attention to the actions that mattered. Matthew 7, verse 21 says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven." That was the moment Jane realized that spiritual talk doesn't always match spiritual maturity. Sometimes people use the right language to win your heart, but their lives don't reflect God's will. The lesson for Jane: be careful not to confuse a love for God with genuine Christ-like character. Hard lesson number two: chemistry can mislead you. The chemistry between Jane and her man was undeniable. The sparks were there. Every time they were together, it felt like they were in their own world. They shared late night talks about their future and dreams. And Jane couldn't shake the feeling that this could be something special. But deep down, Jane felt a nagging discomfort. They had passionate conversations, yes, but they also fought constantly about their values, priorities, and faith. What seemed like soulmate material started to feel more like a spiritual tug of war. Jeremiah 17, verse 9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things." And that's what Jen learned. Sometimes the heart can lead you toward the wrong person because you get attached to the feeling of love rather than what's truly healthy. Feelings of attraction and excitement are important, but they don't always mean you found the right person. It's easy to confuse chemistry with confirmation from God. Jane realized that it wasn't enough to just feel like someone was right for her. She needed to ask, does this relationship move me closer to God, or is it leading me away from Him? Hard lesson number three: you can love someone and still walk away. Then came the time Jane had to make the hardest decision of all: walking away from someone she loved deeply. She thought it would get better. She loved him. They shared so many beautiful moments, but deep down, she knew their future wasn't aligned. He wasn't growing spiritually like she was. His commitment to Christ wasn't the same as hers, and it became harder for her to ignore that gap. 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14 says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers." Jane tried to make it work for months, but eventually she had to face the truth. Love alone wasn't enough. Without shared faith, values, and commitments to God, a relationship will eventually fall apart. The decision to walk away broke her heart, but in doing so, she realized that choosing obedience to God was far more important than holding on to a relationship out of fear or loneliness. Hard lesson number 4. Boundaries means you love yourself. Boundaries were a big struggle for Jane. She always thought that if she loved someone enough, she should be flexible, patient, and understanding when it comes to their flaws. She allowed her partner to cross lines that she knew were unhealthy. But over time, she realized that she was compromising too much. One evening, after a difficult conversation with a friend, she came across Proverbs 4, verse 23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That verse changed everything for Jane. She realized that boundaries aren't about rejection, they are about protection. Setting boundaries means guarding your heart, something God calls us to do, to protect ourselves from harm and unnecessary emotional pain. When Jane finally started setting healthy boundaries in her relationships, it was hard at first, but she found that the right person would respect those boundaries, not try to push them. She learned that true love respects your limits. Hard lesson number 5. Waiting is harder than settling. The waiting game was the toughest lesson for Jane. She saw friends getting married, others entering relationships, and the fear of being left behind crept in. Her loneliness made her wonder if she was just being too picky. One day, she met someone who seemed perfect in many ways, but something didn't sit right in her spirit. She asked herself, am I settling just because I don't want to be alone? Psalm 27, verse 14 reminds us, wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. And that's when Jane realized that waiting wasn't a punishment, it was God's protection. She didn't need to rush into a relationship to feel validated. God was teaching her to trust His timing, knowing that the right person would come when the time was right. She chose to wait, and though it was difficult, she learned that waiting patiently on God's timing would always lead to something better than settling for less. Hard lesson number 6. God uses relationships to refine you. Here's a surprising lesson Jen learned. God doesn't just use relationships to give us happiness, He uses them to refine us. Every relationship, every heartache, every challenge was an opportunity for her to learn. Through her experiences, she discovered areas of herself that needed growth, patience, trust, and the ability to discern when a relationship was aligned with God's purpose. Romans 8, verse 28 says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him. Even the painful relationships, the one that ended in heartbreak, were used by God to prepare Jane for the future. She became more discerning, more mature, and more confident in God's plan for her life. The truth is, Christian dating isn't a smooth, easy road. It's filled with challenges, heartbreaks, and hard lessons. But those lessons are what shape us. They refine our character, our faith, and our ability to discern God's will for our lives. If you're in a season of waiting, even if you've been hurt, just remember you are not alone. God is working all things for your good, even if it doesn't feel that way. Take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What lessons have you learned through your relationships, and how have they drawn you closer to God?